Thank you. Thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you for that inspirational talk, and thank you for the tribute. For me, it's always a treat to see young people like yourself doing great work when it comes to peace and nonviolence, especially in a world that is so, right now, crazy. I usually like to start by telling stories because I feel like this is the way I can contextualize life. So I'll tell you two stories. A few months back, I moved a year and a half back, or 2 years now. I moved to New York to teach at Barnard College. And on one morning, I'm on my way to a meeting in Manhattan. And I tell the story by saying I moved to New York with all of my Africanness. And so I'm walking down the street. Of course, I'm getting late for the meeting. And I've observed 3 black boys going into a nail salon. Instead of going to my meeting, I stopped. That's the Africanness. I stood outside of the nail salon waiting to see what they would come outside with. They came out with a pair of flip-flops, slippers. Interesting. I should be on my way. I wanted to see next. My meeting is right. They're going left. I turn left. So I follow these boys going back in the direction that I had come. And what I saw had me shocked. This is the time, or those were the times when Black Lives Matter has started. These 3 black boys had observed not a Hispanic, not an African, a white old man trying to go from point A to point B, but his flip-flops were broken. They had gone to buy him a pair of slippers so that he could make his journey easier. I saw that and my heart filled with joy. And of course, the African in me took over. So I ran to hug them. And they went like, whoa. And then I said to them, come, I'm your auntie. Of course. And I'm so proud of you all. Go and tell your mothers that she raised very good boys. But as I left that place, obviously late for my meeting, I couldn't help stop to think, how many of us with so much resources at our disposal passed by that man and never noticed? How many of us, even me, I did not notice? The second story, I have a bunch of students on my foundation scholarship, and the way I keep track of their lives is that I spy on them on Facebook. So they've come to call me Wi-Fi, open access, whatever name you can call, because I'm not on Facebook like that, except for my public figure profile, but I'm on their pages and I can read and see. So recently I read, there's a young man, one of the few boys we have on our scholarship. I went on his page and I read, he had a picture of him and a little child, early morning, and he wrote, those young people who have cars to take them to school, those who had a warm breakfast this morning, those who have parents that can afford, be grateful. I just encountered this 4-year-old. She's walking almost an hour to school. And when I asked her, did you have breakfast? She did not even know what breakfast was. He bought her something to eat and proceeded to walk her to school. I tell these 2 stories because they've really spoken to my heart. These are the times that we live in that is so filled with, and I'm sure you all know it, you see it in your everyday work. Segregation, homophobic attacks, xenophobia in places that you never imagined. We live in an era where facts have now become alternative facts, and all kinds of things we're seeing. Like Jamila said, no one understands the concept of democracy anymore. Today, what we see as patriotism is actually nationalism, all in an attempt to keep out the other. The rhetorics of us versus them has increased. No longer can you sit in a spot or a place or go to a restaurant where you will not, and I say this as an African and a black person, experience an inch of racism. A few weeks ago, I was in Winchester, somewhere here in the UK. And I went into the restaurant to have lunch. I think I look good right now. And I look the same way, dressed up in something else. And I'm on the phone talking to my sister. I told the guy, table for two, because my husband was back. He said, I will give you a table when you get off the phone. This is a young man that I can employ, but he's white. I said to him, I want a table. I'm on the phone with my ear, not my butt, so give me a table. And then he took me to the table, and he said, how are you going to pay? I haven't even ordered. I said, I have a room here. Well, I'm sorry, but lunch doesn't cover your room. I said, okay, then look at me from head to toe. Do I look like I'm homeless? Young men, don't mess with me because we're getting close to getting your ass whooped. And then he looked at me and went away. My husband came, and we ordered, and then he brought the room bill, the bill for us to sign. I said, no, I'll show you I have cash. So I paid him cash and took the receipt and carried to the company that invited me to the UK and said, can you reimburse me? And they said, what happened? And I explained to them. But this is just a tiny bit of what you see in airports, on airplanes, and many different places. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin. Because I've been in some countries. I was in one Arab country recently in an airport, and someone spat in the face of a white person. I cringed. The state of our world is sad. But the hope for everything that we see is people like yourself. Unfortunately, we have taken power from ourselves and have given it over to a few individuals. So today, governments can do anything, pass any legislation, and because over time, the world is craving for anything that looks like good, people will buy into more divisions, more oppressions, and more suppressions. I'm not here to lecture you about what you see in the news and hear in the news. Mine is just to encourage you that each and every one of us have a place and a stake in this world. The first thing that we need to seek to do is to tear down, including those of us who do humanitarian work, the invisible walls that divide us from one another. Begin to see people for who they are. I recently gave a talk, and I talked about taking the open mind challenge, refusing to see white or black and see humans. Because over time, everything about the world that we live in now has taken humor away and is now just statistics and statistics and numbers. So we talk about Syria from a very off perspective, because it's no longer women and children, babies and mothers, and individuals dying. Is about the numbers. It's about the politics of powerful nations. Nations that are too afraid to fight each other, so they constantly find alternative war fuel. Unfortunately, Syria has become one of those. We must begin not to see divisions, but we must strive to tear down the walls that divide us. And one of the ways that I say it, especially when I talk to young people, is that over time, every time you act to me on a basis of your stereotype, you build a thin wall between yourself and myself. And every time you act on it again, you build a thinner wall. Eventually, you don't see a human being. You begin to see the object and subject of your stereotype. So you're able to tell me I can only give you a seat if you get off the phone because my need for food doesn't appeal to you. We must begin. We, each and every one of us in this room, must begin to see humans, tear down the walls that divide us. The second thing that we must strive to do is understand that as enormous as the problems of our world may be, we all have a stake in chipping out the bits and pieces. Don't think about how much you will do in your lifetime. Just aspire as you wake up every day to make one person's life better. Like the little boy, like the 3 black boys. How can I do it differently for someone in need? The third thing that we must all aspire to do is to begin to believe that peace is possible. When we live in a time where everyone thinks the alternative to peace is the best alternative, my question to world leaders all of the time, where have you seen if a fire erupted in this room and the firefighters came, they pour fire on the fire? The meaning of insanity is doing one thing over and over and expecting a different result. The American boots on the ground in Syria is another disaster. Dialogue, peace is definitely possible in the world that we live in. We cannot continue to overstate the reason why it's necessary to do nonviolence, because it is the only way that we can solve the problems of the world. But those of us who find ourselves in a humanitarian field, in philanthropic field, when you begin to think about the bigness of the problem and all of the crises in the world, just dream that peace is possible. 14 years in the Republic of Liberia, 10% of our population dead, 7 women dared to dream for peace. And when we started our work, we had only $10 in our handbag. 7 of us. What made the difference in that work was when we wrote that statement and decided to name ourselves. Most times people feel comfortable sitting behind their computers and just writing trash. When someone asks us, so who are we going to say wrote this statement? Someone said the women of Liberia. We said that's fraudulent. How can 7 people write a statement and say women of Liberia? It's not even 1% of the population. So we will name ourselves. We wrote our names in the day and era of Charles Taylor. The next morning, everyone wanted to know who were these 7 women who dared to name themselves. We didn't think that we would even be a part of the history when they're writing about peace in our country, but we were dreaming that somehow our own intervention will make it possible for the nation to get closer to peace. So whatever you're doing, if you wake up in the morning, you're feeling like, oh my God, you're in good company, because I feel the same way sometimes. But never give up, because imagine each and every one of us are like bright light in this dark world. We can never, ever give up. Finally, as we go out to do the things that we do, it is important for us to remember that we're not leaders in other spaces, but we're on journeys to accompany people, to help them to realize the best that there is to be in them. I read a story about South Sudanese women living in the refugee camp in Uganda, and how these women come together every month and they do soap sugar, just whatever they can get, and give it to one woman who's in distress. And some months they put money together. I'm that crazy, like officially crazy person who reads the story and go down and read all of the comments, even about myself. That's the real, true meaning of crazy. As I read the comments, someone wrote there, international organizations need to go and assist these women. I say, yeah, we go again. Because these women have figured it out. International organizations need to go and journey with them, help them not start taking over their processes. The minute we begin to fail in our work of helping people is when we come with the spirit of arrogance. We come with the I know it all attitude. We come with, I am the Superman or Superwoman to change this. The world is calling on each and every one of us, but it's calling on us from a different place, a place of service, a place of open heart, a place of open mind, and a place of just going out there and believing that good can definitely overcome evil. Because we live in a time where it seems evil is overcoming good. Thank you.